Well, my name is Joan Chittister. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. I spend most of my life writing and speaking and directing the development of a very small center for resources and spirituality called Bennett Vision. I'm a Benedictine sister from Erie, Pennsylvania. Well, when I look at the world, I'm not separating it into catechisms and civil documents. I believe that life is of a piece. And so when you have defined your spirituality, in my opinion, it will affect the way you go about the entire rest of your life. So my point of view is that God is, and that God is here, that God is immanent, that the Spirit resides and in all of us, and that, you know, when the poet says the world is full of the grandeur of God, I believe it. So there is no subject that I define in my own head as secular. Everything I do, all my experiences, are either deepening my own spiritual life or betraying it. And so there's this consciousness in me of the way all the pieces are supposed to fit together. My housework, my homework, my relationships, my ideals, my politics, my concerns, my life with my pets, my care for the earth. Everything is filled with the energy and the purpose of creation, and that's enough for me. So I don't come at anything politically. I don't come at things economically. I don't come at things. I mean, I've been called, and not incorrectly, you know, a feminist, but that isn't. It's nobody's ideology that defines me. It is the question: is this true? Is what you are doing now, John, is this true to the best will of God for the best creation that God enabled? And if you're not participating and contributing to that, stop. Don't come back. It's that simple.
So what is happiness in your life? How has that affected the way that you write about happiness?
Well, I can tell you this much. There's something about the glory of age. As the years go by, happiness itself redefines itself over and over again. What I've learned is that whatever I thought happiness was at the age of 20 was bogus, and that what I think happiness is now is much more internal, much more real, not based on much of anything except my own attitude toward life and my ability to get out of this moment with you, Jacob, a wonderful reason for being alive, and be able to talk to a young man who cares about such questions. Happiness, therefore, in my opinion, and I write about it a lot in the book. The book, you realize, is a comparative study of happiness. I'm really asking the question in this book, what do all the disciplines say? What does philosophy say happiness is? What does science say? What does sociology say? What does psychology say? How are we defining happiness in this day and age? Is there any common strand to them? And if not, is there one that feels right, that feels more important than this collection of baubles that American consumer society tries to tell us will make us feel better if the more of them that we have. So happiness comes down to your sense of purpose. Do you have a reason to get up in the morning? Is it a reason worth getting up for? And are you operating, Aristotle says, in virtuous activity? Do you know that every day of your life you are making this planet better than it was or would be if you weren't here? And I would argue that if that's not the case, in your own home, when you walk into work in the morning, then you haven't got it yet. You don't realize that, you know, when you're a kid they gave you those kaleidoscopes. Remember that? And you twisted them, and every time you twisted them, the color range changed and the shape changed. Everything you do in life, when you walk in this door, when you met me in that lobby, you were the kaleidoscope of the moment for me. And you could have toxified that situation. On the contrary, you were calm, you were smiling, you were helpful, you were present. You were contributing to the peace and harmony of this creation. And I would hope that that would make you happy. That you would say, my mother would like this, you know, this is what my dad wanted me to be and to do. And then I would say, you move up the scale from that. After that personal moment, now you're moving toward the cosmic moment. And the cosmic moment is, why was I born? And having been born, am I affecting the energy around me in a positive way? Happiness is a great topic, and this society could benefit from a discussion of all of these issues and all of these disciplines, because we have these great global surveys now on happiness. We can tell you what make the Finns happy and what make the Moldavians happy and what makes the Botswanian happy. We need to compare them. And we have to see where we are in the middle of that, personally and as a culture. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, what does the neuroscientist say happiness is about? It's a great topic. It goes in multiple directions at once. And when you're struggling with that inside, and then you hear the great beatitudinal call, happy are those who. Happy are those who aren't bullies. Happy are those who care about other people. Happy are those who set out to make their relationships just. It's a great call to personal felicity, personal development. It's the call to holiness. It's the call to holiness. And then you look at Aristotelian philosophy, and he's very clear about the fact it's doing good for the right reason, and that everything else falls away when you're in that position. I would hope, quite frankly, that there would be a lot of groups around the country who would take the book Happiness into their parishes, into their reading groups, into their families, into their classrooms, and start just a chapter at a time. What do these people say? And work their way through the book, and then you get to that great Jesus question, and who do you say? And who do you say that I am, that I'm calling you to be, that I want you to be? Who do you say what the happiness of your life is? I think somehow or other that introducing this topic and doing it, putting so much into this book and doing it so well is a real gift. It's a real social gift in this country at this time, and I thank Eerdmans for that opportunity.
Now, why do you think so many people try and fail to find happiness in their lives? Because
we're looking for the wrong thing. We think that we can get happiness by adding layers of our toys to our souls. And it's what you eliminate that gets you closer and closer to happiness. The Kenyans say, those who have cattle have care. You know, the more you have, the more you'll be distracted and distressed. So what you need is, you need the keepings of a dignified life. Now don't misunderstand. I am not talking about general destitution. I do not believe in poverty any more than Jesus did. But I do believe that we're asking for the wrong things to make us rich. Otherwise, how do you explain the fact? I read all of these articles. People come back. In the last month, since the great tsunami or typhoon there. And what do all these wide-eyed, smiling, young American reporters or Western reporters report? Ah, these people have nothing, but they're so happy. Oh, come on now. You're looking at a people whose life does not depend on the number of things they have. We had a farmer in the Midwest, and he came out after that tornado in Chicago, and everything is gone. Everything. It's right down to the cement base of the ground. And you see the shock on their faces. You see them going through the debris looking for what? Wedding pictures, graduation pictures, the baby's first rattle, that kind of thing. And the reporter looks at this older man, I suppose in his 60s, maybe even older than that, but a good healthy fellow. And he looked and they said, you know, you just built this house. I mean, this must be a terrible moment for you. He said, well, it was certainly a shock. Who would have thought this would happen? But he said, one thing I know, I walked out of that house with the only thing in my life that meant anything to me. And the reporter didn't get it, said, what was that? And he said, my wife. Relationships. You know, that notion that I'm loved, that feeling that I'm safe, that moment that says, in someone else's eyes, it was right for me to be born, and I'm living it well. Happiness is a great topic. Go for it.
Now, women's issues are also a focal point of your writing. What do you think is the current state of women's issues, or the current state of women in the Catholic Church and worldwide?
What is the state of women around the world? Now, UNIFEM, the United Nations Commission for Women, confirms the fact that 2/3 of the illiterate on the globe are women. And then they say, and 2/3 of the hungry of the world are women, because you see, women eat last. They'll feed the husband and feed the children, whatever's left over they get. In subsistence societies. And then they say, and 2/3 of the poorest of the poor are women. Now, just start from the numbers. What's the condition of women in the world? And then, where do you go to fix it? Well, I think, in large part, you have to go to the churches. You have to ask yourself what theology of creation the churches sold. And in almost universally, including all religions, but certainly Christianity, the early definitions of women were sinner, temptress, irrational, useless, dependent, subservient creature. Now, let's go back, Jacob. Now we have a slim understanding now, don't we, of why 2/3 of the illiterate of the world are women, and 2/3 of the poor of the world are women, including in this country. Don't eliminate the economic, social development of women in the United States of America. When you use the 2/3 indicator, it's plain as it can be. 2/3 of the poorest of the poor are women. Why? That's not an accident. That's a policy. That's a policy. Somebody, someplace has decided that women need less, women deserve less, women are worthy of less, and they're good enough to give them less. Less wages, less promotions, less education, less formation, less leadership, less. Now, your question, we'll finally get to your question. What's the role of women in the Catholic Church? It's the role, same role it is every place else, except that some people liturgize it differently. None of our Christian churches are really going out on a limb for women. They're happy to talk about the four, and they don't care. They'll take up the right of the foreigner, and they'll be really concerned about foreign relations. But when it comes down to using the gifts and the talents and respecting the role of the other half of the human race, they're not there. Now, who's helping to save this? Publishers. Publishers. If it weren't for publishers, do you really believe that this topic would have been receiving any serious consideration? You think the churches would be talking about the kinds of things I'm talking about from the pulpit? Not many. Not many. So what do publishers do? Publishers raise questions and keep them alive. It's an important role. It's a really important contribution. It's a great ministry in a secular and selfish world.
And do you see any reason to hope for the young girls of our day?
Oh yeah, I do. There's no doubt about it. The reason for hope is not that the questions are answered, but that they've been asked. And once a question is asked and kept alive, it's almost impossible to suppress it. So those who want to continue the oppression, the suppression, the invisibility, the misuse of women are on the wrong side of history.
Also, many of your books deal with interfaith dialogue. Why do you think it's important to seek out and listen to the wisdom of the world?
I think that God speaks in many faces, in many tongues. And I think there's so much wisdom that has developed, spiritual wisdom, in all of the major religious traditions, that what we're hearing is the call to full human development in each of them. But they all come in slightly different shades of gold and red and blue. And they enable us to hear freshly what we have always heard. I never think that interfaith dialogue or study or discussion or spiritual development is ever an attack on your own faith. But I do think it can bring you to your faith with fresh ears and new eyes, so that hearing these same God-given messages through other historical, religious, spiritual traditions can only freshen and strengthen our own. I think interfaith work is one of the major spiritual practices of our time.
And finally, who do you envision reading your books? Who is your audience?
Well, my audience is probably those who are seeking for a full spiritual life. No, not necessarily those whose answers are simply institutional. But people who want to know, the institution is meant to bring us to a consciousness of the presence of God in life. But once that happens, you begin to seek. Everybody becomes a seeker, even if you know you've been found. So you hold your Catholic tradition, but you move beyond it. You pull it into every crevice and cranny in life. So my hope is that my readers are truly spiritual seekers who are open to hearing the spiritual dimensions of life in whatever language they might be presented. I would hope that my readers are intelligent people who like thinking and want to think out loud with other people, who don't do it to be contentious. They aren't debating religion. They're discussing religion. And their religion doesn't diminish them. Religion lifts them beyond the obvious to the real in life. So I guess I'm looking for average, intelligent, thoughtful readers who believe that the spiritual dimensions of life are not exhausted by anybody's catechism, and who enjoy sharing those insights and concerns with equally calm and happy and God-seeking people.